So you just made some American buttercream icing and there are tons of air bubbles in there. Oh, so annoying, but it doesn't have to be. I'm going to show you how to work with it. Hi, it's Karolyn. If you want to learn how to bake and decorate amazing cakes, then I would love for you to join me by hitting subscribe and the bell. So today I'm doing a quick video talking about air bubbles in your buttercream icing, and oh, it can get so annoying, but I have a process that I do when I have some air bubbles in my icing and I can easily smooth them out, and I want to show you how I do that. So a few things. I am starting with my cake already baked and filled, and it is wrapped in plastic and sitting at room temperature so it can settle before I start this process. I have videos showing you how I bake, fill, and ice cakes, and everything is going to be linked in the description if you want to go into further detail. And also, I want to make a note that I only work with American buttercream. I have a video showing you how I make that, and that will be below. But you have to use a crusting buttercream with this technique. If you use something like a Swiss meringue or any kind of meringue buttercream, they don't crust. So if you push like a paper towel or paper against it, it's going to stick and it's not going to work. So this works for crusting buttercream. So let's get started.
All right, before we get started, I have a hot pot of water that I'm going to keep dipping my bench scraper in and wipe it off with a paper towel. I'm going to use that hot metal to smooth my cakes. You won't see me do it, but that's what I'm doing. I have my cake already filled. It's been settled. I've removed the plastic, and it is a little crooked, so I'm just using my spatula to press it to the side to even it out a little bit. And I have some regular white American buttercream. I have videos showing you how I make this, and I will link that below. I'm just getting a crumb coat on. So this is a thinner coat. You could see that my spatula is going all the way down to the cake board. And once I get an entire layer on the bottom half, then I do it on the top half as well, making sure that the icing is sticking out over the top of the cake. And you will see why I do that shortly. And I'm just filling in the top as well. Now I'm holding my bench scraper straight and I'm scraping the sides, trying to smooth out the icing a little bit, and I did dip it in that water. And I like to do it in one fell swoop, so that's why I'm doing it like that. There. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's a crumb coat. And now I'm holding my spatula straight and pressing that excess icing back. You want to make sure you're not holding it on an angle. It has to be straight across so the top is even. And now you could see that there's still some air bubbles in here, and that's okay. I'm going to sit this in the refrigerator for about 4 hours so the icing can solidify. Now I made some more American buttercream icing, and you can see this is a little too stiff and there's a lot of air bubbles in there. So what I like to do is add a little more water, and however much water you add is going to depend on how much icing you have and how humid it is. But I just want to mix it. I have it probably on a 2 out of 10 here, and then I'm going to turn it up to about a 6 out of 10 real quick and then turn it back down just to incorporate that extra water. And now you can see it's much smoother. There are still air bubbles in here, but the icing is a lot smoother and it will be easier to smooth the air bubbles out. So now I have my cake out of the fridge. It was sitting in there for about 4 hours, and I'm going to do the same thing, doing a thinner coat of this blue icing, and I'm making sure I'm pressing it against the cake, and I'm doing a thinner layer around the bottom and then around the top like I did earlier, making sure that the icing is sticking out over the top of the cake. I have a video showing you how I ice cakes in full detail, and I will link that in the description. And again, I want to fill in the top as well. Now using my bench scraper again, and I'm trying to smooth this out. You could see all the air bubbles on the side of that cake, right? So as I'm starting the smoothing process, I'm slowly going to be getting rid of it. So you could see those bubbles there. And it's starting to look a little better. Now I have a Viva paper towel. There's a rough side and a smooth side. I want to use the smooth side. I will find these and link them in the description. And I'm just using my fingers and light pressure. You can see right here, there's like imperfections in that cake. So I put the paper towel over it and I'm rubbing that on top of there. And when I remove the paper towel, it's already starting to remove those air bubbles. It makes it look so much better. So let's start with the paper towel around the entire perimeter of the cake. And now I want to take my fondant smoother, make sure I'm holding it straight, not on an angle, and I'm using light pressure to press it against the cake, smoothing the paper towel. This is going to help smooth out the air bubbles a little more as well. And now look how much better that looks. The air bubbles are really starting to go away. And again, I want to make sure I'm holding this spatula straight, not on an angle. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm pushing that excess icing back. I'm using that back half of the spatula lined up with the line that I previously made. And again, this is going to be all covered in that tutorial where I show you how to ice smooth buttercream cakes. And that looks good. Still not finished. Let's set that aside for about another 20 minutes. And now I have a piece of butcher paper, and this is really going to buff out any of the pattern that the paper towel left in the side of the cake. So I'm using my fondant smoother and just pressing that around the side, and that looks really good. And again, I just want to refine that top edge with my spatula. And to smooth it out, I like to get a little bit of the hot water from that pot on the top and spread it around. And then I keep dipping that spatula in the hot pan, the hot pot of water, and now I'm smoothing from the edges in. And that hot water really helps to smooth out that icing. And once I have that done, I just like to refine it one more time with the paper and the fondant smoother. And look how smooth the icing is. You can't see any of the air bubbles. It looks perfect. Put that back in the fridge.
So there you go. And we see that air bubbles in icing, albeit annoying, there are ways to work around it. Now, I have a video that I go into complete detail. It's like a 40-minute video showing you how I ice very smooth, even, sharp buttercream cakes, and that will be linked in the description. But a few things that I just want to go over one more time with you. Number one, the consistency of the icing is very important. So it's a little difficult to tell in a video. I hope it translated, if you will. But before I added that water, the icing was a little stiff. Why do I say it like that? Little. It was a little stiff, and there were a lot more air bubbles in there. And it was still spreadable. I just had to thin it out a little bit. Now, in that bowl, I had 2 batches of my American buttercream icing, and I added 1 tablespoon of water. You can add milk, you can add other liquid if you prefer. But the amount of extra water or liquid that you add is going to depend on how much icing you have and how humid it is outside. So if it's cold and dry, you may need to add a little more. If it's hot and humid, you may need to add a little less. So my recommendation is to start with a little bit of liquid, mix it and see what consistency you get, and then if you need to, add a little bit more. I have found that when I add a little bit more liquid to icing that has air bubbles in it, it does not get rid of the air bubbles, but it makes it easier to smooth. And when it's easier to smooth, I can use that hot bench scraper, which helps smooth out the bubbles along with the other processes. Now, also real quick, so I get this question a lot. In my videos, you see me, I smooth it with the bench scraper and then immediately use that Viva paper towel. And if your bench scraper is not completely dry, or if the icing is too moist, if you will, if the icing is a little too wet, the paper towel is going to stick. So you're going to need to give it a couple minutes for it to crust. And that does happen to me sometimes. If I find that I'm putting the paper towel against it and I peel it away, it's sticking, just let it sit. It's a crusting buttercream. It will start to form a crust in a few minutes, and then you can continue the process. And I understand that those Viva paper towels are not available everywhere. I will find them and link them below. You have to make sure you use the smooth side. And if you don't have access to Viva paper towels, you could use a regular paper towel. However, that pattern is going to transfer onto the icing. So it just could create a whole other issue. So if you can't access Viva paper towels, you may want to do a different process. So I'm trying not to be long-winded. I could go on and talk about this forever. Maybe I should do like a class on it or something so I can review everything. If you guys have any other questions or comments, let me know and leave it below. And you can keep in touch on socials. Check out my website. Everything is in the description. And if you want to stick around, you can watch this video next and hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. Please like this video if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, it's cake. Have fun. I will see you on the next one. Bye.